Hey, this is Yang Nguyen, and you're listening to the Emmy Wealth Builder podcast, where we celebrate incredible immigrant success stories, share proven strategies, and give you actionable steps to build your wealth, freedom, and a lasting legacy. Let's go get it. Most people think that getting healthy is just about taking a pill or following the latest diet. But what if the real answer is deeper and actually life-changing? So many of us are struggling with chronic conditions, burnout, aging parents who need care. And that's why this conversation matters, because true healing goes beyond just quick fixes. So I'm really excited to have with us today a board-certified nurse practitioner and founder of Nourish House Calls. She helps patients take control of their health through science-backed personalized treatment, everything from hormone optimization to regenerative medicine so they can thrive and not just survive. So Joya, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell the audience a little bit about your journey. How did you become a nurse practitioner and your passion with that right now?
Yeah, so I always was really curious as a kid, loved the sciences, loved learning about how the body works and why. I'm a really big why person. If I can understand the why, I can remember it really well. And so going into like a medical type of field was something that I really wanted to do from early on. And I thought about midwifery or veterinary medicine or that kind of thing. Ended up starting school in a pre-med program. And all the way back then, I don't know if I can be the mom I want to be and the doctor I would want to be at the same time. So I settled on nursing, and that was a really good fit for me for a while. Then went back for my master's when I felt sort of not challenged anymore. I guess I was ready for a new challenge. Went back to get my master's to be a family nurse practitioner and kind of see my own patients and make my own plans for my patients, knowing that I really loved kind of more holistic, integrative, or functional medicine is kind of the word that we call it now. But I love it because it really does a good job of looking at root causes and understanding the why. And if we can understand the why, then often there's a solve for that. So if you're sick because you are not eating well, or you're deficient in a nutrient, or your hormones are off, or the GI health is imbalanced, we can fix that. So rather than giving you Miralax for constipation for the rest of your life, let's figure out what good or bad bacteria are imbalanced or parasites, inflammation's going on. Let's fix that. Now you're just healthy again. Your body heals itself if you give it the right things and take away the wrong things.
This is such a timely conversation.
Oh, good.
Just recently, we just read a book called Good Energy, but a lot of it talks
Oh, yeah, I've read that one. Mhm.
Yeah. And was I like, and love this conversation so much because the big theme of that, just like what you said, is that a lot of US healthcare is focused on fixing the symptoms. If you're always just fixing the symptom, you never actually quite get to the root cause.
No.
And I also love what you said about being able to understand the big picture and kind of be able to incorporate a lot of different things rather than just treating one small part.
Right.
Let's focus a bit on the business side of it
Yep.
first, and I would love to also dig a bit more into the health side of it as well. For a lot of the listeners, they may be used to the technician role, I want to say, so very good at what they do. And for you, you are now also getting into the business ownership side of things.
Right.
Tell us more about maybe the biggest challenge you have faced going from a nurse practitioner to the business owner and running your practice.
Yeah, well, we are going through the biggest challenge right now, which I think is hiring. So I need to hire another provider, which has proven to be very difficult to find the right person. Part of it is I am a little bit of a control freak, as probably many entrepreneurs are. And I want somebody to care as much about my patients and care as much about doing a great job for them as I do. And when it's not your business, I know that I can't expect somebody to care as much as I do. And I still want to find a person who comes close. So that's been probably the biggest challenge.
What I'm really hearing is hiring the right staff that is also in alignment with your care, with how you want to run the practice.
Yeah, because it's really concierge medicine is a caring thing, right? And so they need to know that they are cared for.
Awesome. Tell us more then on the health side, because a lot of our conversation on the podcast is about wealth building. And one thing that I think sometimes is taking the back seat for us is the health side for sure. Yep. We will go through stuff, we will just keep pushing and the health take a back seat. Tell us more about some of the biggest things you've seen from patients, people struggling with their health, and maybe what people can do to take that first step towards thinking about taking care of their health.
I think sometimes we end up complicating it way too much and thinking, well, I don't know enough about how I'm supposed to be healthy, so I won't even start, right? So it's kind of paralyzing because there's so much information out there on you should take this supplement or that supplement. The reality is supplements are great and they're necessary and I use them all the time. However, we do need to have the foundational pieces in place in order for the supplements or anything else to work as well as they can. So things like sleep, super important to get good sleep hygiene, go to bed and wake up at similar times every day, even wear a sleep tracker like the Oura Ring or Whoop or even Apple Watches will track sleep now. So you can have data so that you can go, okay, well, I had a glass of wine before bed. Oh, I saw my deep sleep and REM sleep tank. Okay, well, now I know that if I make the choice to have a glass of wine before bed, now I know what the consequence will be. So having data can help back up your choices or inform your choices, change your choices. So sleep is huge. Diet is another huge thing. And that's another place where there's a lot of confusion on what should you eat? Should you eat meat? Should you not eat meat? That's the big one right now. To me, the simplest way that I can educate people on how to eat is eat produce and protein. So fruits and veggies and protein. And when we're talking protein, I am a fan of animal protein as long as it's the cleanest you can find. So things like organic, grass-fed, wild-caught fish, for example, as much as you can. Sometimes you can't control that, but control it when you can. And avoiding things like processed foods, artificial sweeteners, flavors, colorings. If it comes from a box, probably not something you should use as a staple in your diet. So keeping it simple like that. And then movement is really important too. Getting outside, getting your eyes in the sun for a few minutes at least every morning, going for a walk is a great idea. Or even practicing going out in your backyard or on your porch and breathing in the fresh air, having your feet on the ground and going through 3 things you're thankful for in the morning, right? So the sunlight plus activity, go for a walk, lifting weights for the activity exercise piece is if you're going to do one thing, build muscle. Cardiovascular exercise is, I would say, secondary if you have to choose, but building muscle is just so important. And then things like community and friends and stress relief, I think are all kind of a piece of the same puzzle. When we are lonely, our health suffers. When we do not have community, our health suffers. And that also plays into the stress management piece. If you're a business owner, you're probably stressed. That's just inevitable. And so to find ways to alleviate or manage, I would say, the stress and deal with it so it's not so harmful to you, those are all big things, pillars, I would say, that you need to have in place before you go get a bunch of NAD IVs or, that kind of thing.
I love that. I love what you just share, those major foundation that people need to think about. I'm sure you run into this a lot too when patients come to you. And it seems like once the system is broken, you're not really sure what to focus on, that what will give you jump start to keep going.
Yeah.
Any advice on how people can even choose to prioritize what's first, or we just approach this overall?
One way that I like to think about it is, especially if a patient comes to me having tried a lot of things already and their diet is pretty good and maybe they're sleeping okay, that's not the state of a normal, healthy body. And so often they come to me having been told by their primary care doctor, yeah, well, all your labs are normal, so there's nothing wrong with you. And they leave feeling so unheard and almost like a complainer who they're not believed, like, oh, maybe I am crazy. My labs are normal. Gosh, right? And so then they don't seek help anymore. So a lot of the times when I see them is when I can listen and I can go, no, this is not the normal state of how things should be. They just weren't able to dig with you and really figure out what's going on. Now, with people who come to see me, a lot of times it's their hormones, just because that's kind of a big thing that I am known for. So women in their perimenopausal or menopausal stages, men kind of at the same age, oftentimes it's a hormonal deficiency that's causing their hot flashes, their poor energy, poor sleep for sure, anxiety, depression, weight gain, all kinds of problems that maybe they've been offered a sleeping pill and an antidepressant by their doctor or traditional provider. Certainly we can use them short term to get you sleeping while we're figuring out the root cause, but let's look at testing. So let's test your hormones. Let's test nutrient levels. Let's test neurotransmitters. Let's look at stool testing to figure out, is it something that's stemming from the gut, the GI tract? And then let's investigate. It's kind of like a little sleuth journey to figure out. And I love that, right? It's like problem solving. It's figuring out what's the main problem. What do we need to focus on first? And then kind of what are the next things that we can tackle once the big rocks are taken care of.
Again, this is so timely. I literally just had a conversation over the weekend with a friend, and she suggests that I take a look into my hormones level because I was telling her about my symptoms, and she was like, yeah, get your hormones checked. So this is such a timely conversation. Joya, tell us a little bit more because you mentioned a lot of us may be seeing your primary care. And like you said, that's actually a very common experience, mine included. But then it gets very challenging to either find a primary care doctor that understand that I don't personally know how to find a functional medicine provider. So tell the audience a little bit more. Like, one, what kind of primary care is this functional medicine provider? And then how do you find a functional medicine provider?
Yeah. So the first thing I would look for is somebody licensed. So doctor, nurse practitioner, naturopathic doctors are licensed in some states, physician's assistants, DOs are another option too. So there's a few options. What I caution with is like health coaches who are ordering labs and prescribing supplements, which is not legal. And they're doing it, but they're practicing medicine without a license is what they're doing. And so some of them are great, but just know that it's not legal. So I would find somebody licensed, first of all. You can go to websites like ifm.org. So Institute for Functional Medicine is that one, and they have a find a provider. There's also a4m.com. They have a find a provider. Those are the two big ones that I would say if people are either certified or registered with them and have taken courses with them and attended conferences, they're probably likely to be up on the latest research and willing to work with patients in a more holistic way. There are certainly other organizations for kids. There's the MAPS, but A4M and IFM are probably the top two that I would recommend going to. They're very reputable. And then a lot of times you can find people in your area. You'll also find people who are licensed in multiple states. So as a licensed provider, in order to see a patient somewhere, even if it's via telemedicine, I have to be licensed in the state where the patient is. So I'm licensed in, I think, 8 now. So just because somebody's not in Illinois where I am doesn't necessarily mean I can't see them. We have on our website all the states that I am licensed in. But you could, if you find a provider who you feel is a good fit, ask them, do they see patients in other states too? Are they licensed there? So that would be a good start. And oftentimes, like I offer discovery calls for my patients, just a quick chance to connect and they can talk to me. I can ask them questions and you almost get a quick feel for energy and, is this a good fit before they invest with me in their health, right? Because this is a cash-based non-insurance model typically for most functional medicine care.
Interesting. That's good to know. I know you mentioned a lot of hormones replacement care for both men and women. Tell us a little bit more about common issue that you're seeing right now with a lot of men and women coming in and what would be helpful with that.
Yeah. So, of course, the foundational things that we talked about already are really important to have in place either before or as you go along with that treatment. So, symptoms that I see most often in women, I see a lot of women come to me during their perimenopause or menopausal time period where their periods are either really irregular or have stopped already. Weight gain, brain fog, night sweats are huge, low libido, and like vaginal dryness are huge. People don't want to talk about it, but it's a huge problem. New anxiety and depression, like the kind of thing where somebody will say, I have nothing to be anxious about, and I just feel so anxious. And really, almost what it comes down to, and what I hear a lot is, I just don't feel like myself, and nobody can tell me why. So that's a huge thing. And then women are gaining weight when it doesn't make sense. They're eating the same, they're exercising the same, but they're gaining weight, and typically in the lower belly area, and it's bothersome. Again, they don't feel like themselves. I love treating those because I know exactly what to do, get them feeling like themselves again. And then for men around the same age, typically it's a loss of energy, a loss of their what I would call mojo, right? So not only sexual and low libido and maybe some erectile problems, that's not the only thing that happens when you have low testosterone. A lot of cognitive and motivation issues and even sort of mental performance issues happen. And so these men who are 40, 50, maybe 60 are at the top of their game often, work-wise, career-wise, and are worried about getting caught. Like they know that their mind is slipping, but nobody else has noticed yet, but they're worried like somebody's going to find me out. Their libido is not what it used to be. They're getting softer, less muscular, more fatty. That's bothersome to them too. Often sleep is not as great. Again, don't feel like themselves. And a lot of times people just say, well, I'm getting older. Please don't blame aging on this. That is not what is happening. It's a manageable problem that we can fix and address. And not only to get you feeling better now, but hormone replacement therapy and a functional medicine approach comprehensively helps with a longevity approach too. So making sure that you don't get early heart disease or early Alzheimer's, making sure we're doing things now to prevent that cancer that might have formed 20 years from now because you are at risk metabolically. So prevention is a big piece of this, but also making people feel better now.
I love what you just said about the don't blame it on the aging.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Because I think that's very common. Like, oh yeah, it's just getting old, suck it out, just a part of it.
Does not have to be.
To the audience, if you experience some symptoms and this is not something that you feel like yourself, this is a sign to go see a functional medicine doctor and just kind of get some of that information checked out. It's very good to know. Tell us a little bit about maybe the frequency of care. Let's say somebody comes to you and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. It sounds like the first step is to get lab tests to kind of see where the base would look like. Tell us about the second step and the follow-up and more of that.
Yeah. So it's highly individualized, of course, depending on what's going on with a patient. But so for me, how I usually structure things in my practice is I'll see them for an initial visit, usually 60 to 90 minutes, really dig into what's going on. So I'm spending a lot of time with my patients because I want to know them. And then we'll order testing at that visit. Usually it takes about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks for those labs to come back. And then we'll have the follow-up visit and really make a solid plan. Diet, exercise, supplements, hormones if necessary, prescriptions if they're necessary, we can do too. Like for instance, in the case of a hypothyroid patient, medication probably is necessary. Or mold toxicity, I find the antifungals work better than a lot of the herbals and binders. At that point then, I typically will repeat testing at least every 3 months or quarterly, especially on the things that we just want to track over time. Now, if there's something way out of range, somebody's anemic or really high inflammation levels or signs of infection or something, obviously we're going to retest a little bit sooner than that. But typically I want to see my patients and just keep tabs on them and update every at least 3 months or so. And that's why we've created membership packages that include those visits within the price of what we charge so that it's not another charge for each visit. It's just, you bought this package. I'm going to get you better. I want to see you every 3 months. Like, let's do this. Let me take good care of you.
Awesome. I want to switch topic a little bit because I know you mentioned that you run the business with your husband.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about what has been maybe the most surprising lesson or challenge rewards in building a business with your partner.
So when I started the business in 2018, it was just me and he was a full-time big firm downtown lawyer. And so he supported me when he could, or we'd talk about certain things, but he didn't have the time to commit to helping me grow the business. And we didn't really need to grow the business at that point because his income was supporting our family. And what I was doing with the practice was because I love it and because I needed to practice to maintain a license too. So it's worked out really well. In 2022, he left the law firm to help me expand the practice. That was a big decision, a big leap of faith to do that for multiple reasons. Income-wise, of course, first, right? Lose a lawyer's predictable income. But we really spent time thinking and praying about it, and it's turned out really well. And in terms of challenges, I would say even still, we have to be really aware of separating work from being married. And so being intentional about spending time together, not talking about the business. We both love what we do. He loves his role as kind of the non-clinical, really primarily the business aspect, the business end of things. And I love my role as mostly the clinical worker, right? So it's hard sometimes not to talk about it. And also because we have 3 kids, we have to kind of get it in when we can too. But really focusing on each other and being interested in each other outside of the work-related stuff has been challenging, but also rewarding when we've gotten it right. But it's a balance. It's always a balance that I think we'll always continue to have to work on.
That's so interesting. I work with my boyfriend as well. And so I totally relate about setting a boundary between when is work hours that we can talk about work and when is non-work hours.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurship role, to your point, is like, gotta get whatever time you can get in, kind of get things going. So that can be challenging. But yeah, it is always a journey.
Yeah. And we're not perfect at it. And so we are learning lessons all the time and trying to make improvements and adjustments all the time. So being open to knowing that we have to do that, I think is important too.
I love it. It sounds like you were building a business already and then he joined to help support it.
Oh, yeah.
What advice would you give other couple maybe thinking about starting a business together if they were to start this from scratch?
Make sure that you have a real solid marriage already. So, for example, we have been married since 2006. We have had 3 kids together, 2 of whom have some interesting, challenging, and stressful special needs, which could very well have put undue stress on our marriage. And I think one of the reasons that we've done so well and stayed so close and bonded and it hasn't torn us apart is A, the decision to love each other and not let this tear us apart, but B, the decision to assume good intent of the other. And we've talked about this with some other married people and they go, oh yeah, that is true. Like, I married this man because I love him and he's a good man and I believe that. So when he does something that maybe annoys me or maybe that I think I should be angry with him about, my habit now, and it was a habit I had to train, I think at the beginning, is of course he didn't mean to offend me. He didn't mean to do something that would make me mad. Let me think about his perspective on this. Let me assume he had good intent in what he did. And then let's have a conversation about it. Let me understand why he did what he did or why he said what he said, because I know he wouldn't hurt me. He loves me. I love him. So why did I feel hurt by it? Let me understand it better. So assuming good intent, I think, is like at least one of the big keys to a healthy marriage or relationship.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Sometimes when things happen, we react a certain way that is informed by our past experience, our own personal understanding, all that stuff. But I love what you said about assuming good intent and then be able to take a breath and navigate from there. That is huge.
Because if you're with somebody who you truly believe loves you, and hopefully they do, right? Then why would they hurt you? Why would they do something on purpose to hurt you?
I'm just gonna marinate.
You can steal that one.
Bit. Yeah, I'm just gonna
spread the word.
Yeah, I was like, Joya said this. Remember, assume good intent. That's awesome. Yeah, and I love what you share about kind of having a good base of relationship before you consider starting a business together. Because now you kind of have multiple different level of relationship. So it's always same thing. Let's come back to a good foundation. Since key there.
Exactly. Yes. I didn't even think about that. Yes. Because if it's rocky to start with and then you start a business together, I think that's asking for trouble. Honestly, you've got to really be solid first.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to circle back just a little bit about the functional medicine side. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about functional medicine? And what are some way that you have helped to like maybe reframe it for your patients or maybe for the audience who's listening?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest things is people think it's not based on research, but it is research-based. There's a ton of research about it. It happens that the research out there is not presented in medical schools. And I think that's for very political and financial reasons that medical schools and the traditional medicine does not teach that. But I would say just because your traditional provider isn't aware that there's research out there and they'll tell you, well, there's no research on that. Just because they're not aware of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means they haven't looked for it or they weren't aware of it. But I don't know about you. I don't know everything that's out there. Nobody can possibly know everything that's out there. So I am a specialist in functional medicine and the research behind that. And I know that and I'm solidly in that and I see it work every day. But I understand that people in the traditional realm don't see that. And so maybe it's harder to believe for them because they just don't know.
Wow. Yeah, I can understand that. So I used to be in science research for almost 10 years. So the research that I've been in started back in 1980s. And I started doing the research in 2012. And just before I left was when we just start some preclinical trials. Right. So it's just take a really long time to translate any of this.
Slow. And I think people in functional medicine tend to be a little quicker to the pickup there. So if there's research showing that something can work or does work, and especially when there's no harm or very little harm, and we've talked to the patient about, risk, benefit, we tend to be a little bit more willing to try newer things in general.
Yeah. So I know the theme of our show is wealth building, which for me, right, is very important that you focus on your health because at some point, the wealth only matters if you have the health to go with it. And for a lot of people who are doing both, sometimes it can be hard to kind of balance between these two. I don't know if you've seen this with a lot of your patients. I'm assuming a lot of are also high achievers who come to see you.
Yes.
What are some of that pushback that you have received from the patients and kind of how do you help them work around those pushbacks?
Yeah. So especially for the high achievers, time is their tightest resource. And so trying to help them figure out a way to implement the changes that I'm asking them to implement while not making it overwhelming or too stressful or take up way too much of their time. One thing that I say a lot is I use my hands and I say, here's perfect over here. I want to have you head in that direction. I don't expect you to be perfect and you don't have to be perfect, but I don't want you headed off over here thinking you're doing the right thing. I want to tell you where perfect is, even though I don't expect you to get there, only so that you can head in that direction. So if it's eating protein and produce, you haven't failed if you had pizza one day. You just went over here for a second, get back on this track and head towards the goal. And it's kind of just like in business too, right? We make goals and we don't always reach those goals, and that's okay. It's good to know the direction that you're headed in.
Yeah, and I agree. For business, same thing, right? We always set those gigantic goals and you kind of break it down to smaller steps. And to your point, just heading in that direction is helpful. And just making these meaty steps, meaty progress is really important to get you to where you want to go. I'm going to switch gear into the mystery question of our show. So this is questions that was left behind by our previous guest. And your mystery question is, if you could go back to the beginning of your journey, what would you do differently?
That's a very good question. I wonder if it may have more to do with parenting. I think parenting, you can certainly have successes and regrets. And oftentimes, I think the biggest lesson I've learned in parenting is even if you do everything right or most things right, doesn't necessarily mean your kids are going to respond with how you expect them to respond. You could be the best parent and still have a kid who is disobedient or unkind or whatever. Maybe if I can go back, learning how to show myself more grace in that and understanding that I'm doing the best I can and letting that be enough. Although I will say that's really hard because it's a big deal. Parenting is a big deal. How your kids turn out, we tell ourselves, is a reflection of us. And that may not be as true as what I thought it was when I was pre-parent. Showing grace to ourselves in parenting and knowing we're doing the best we can. We will never know everything or do everything perfectly, but maybe just heading in that right direction is the important thing.
I love that. I remember reading that it's your parents' first time living too. Yep. And that was huge for me to even think about my relationship with my parents. I don't have kids yet, so I'm kind of in that pre-parenting phase.
And there's so much information out there, and there's so much pressure to know all that information. Yeah. Like, how did our parents do it? Or the generation before, they didn't have books and ChatGPT to ask. I use ChatGPT all the time for my parenting struggles now. It's pretty good.
So it's pretty good, yeah. ChatGPT has become a great thought partner.
Yep, I agree.
I love that. Okay, so give yourself more grace and understand that it's your first time figuring this out too.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Thank you so much for being here today with us. Tell the audience how they can find out more about you and your practice.
Yeah, so my website is www.nourishhousecalls.com. And then on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, we are Nourish House Calls. So you can go to the website, book a discovery call from there if you're interested in becoming a patient. But yeah, that's where you can find us.
Awesome. We'll link all that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a blast chatting with you, and can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me.